The fear of hell. I grew up fundamentalist. I was raised by white Christian nationalists. That'll be the title of a book I write someday. But I was raised fundamentalist, Baptist, and the fear of hell was the main motivator of from early childhood well into my adult years, and is responsible for my deconstruction journey, because I was tired of having all my decisions be based on whether or not that decision was going to send me to hell. I wanted to have a little bit of fun, and didn't want to go to hell for having fun. And so I just kept looking into it, and finally have come to the conclusion that through my study that it doesn't exist in the way that we understand it today, the evangelical Christian version of hell. So I've been having fun ever since. I mean, not too much fun, but a little bit of fun. Okay, so
I just laughed out loud.
Yeah, I saw that. That's good. I aim to entertain. Okay, so I'm going to share my presentation, and can you see the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay, so I did it right. Okay. So I can't see you guys, just to let you know. So you'll have to let me know if you
go to in the top right. Well, that's where it is on
the layout.
Yeah, you can change it, I think. And if not, I'll just try to keep an eye on the group in case there's a hand.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bother with
it. And now we see you and the screen, double screen.
That's not what I wanted. Not what I wanted. There's content only. Okay, so that's just my slideshow. So I was just thrilled to finally grasp the concept and embrace it, that there is no hell. Still, sometimes I go, oh my gosh, Diane, you're wrong. You're just going to go burn. But even if that is the case, there is no such thing as eternal conscious torment. I will only burn for a short period of time. So that's encouraging. So what is hell, and why would anyone go there? So the key thing to remember is that no one knows what happens after death. I like to read near-death experience stories, and there are many similar themes, but there is no thing that is consistent across all the stories. And near-death experience stories normally fall within the framework of your embedded theology, so the theology that you were raised with. So there's no consistency. The contemporary evangelical Christian sense of hell is a place of eternal conscious torment for those who do not believe Jesus was the Son of God, was crucified for the atonement of the sins of humankind, and was raised from the dead to eternal life. It's really hot in my apartment, so I have to turn on my air. So we avoid this fate only if we accept and embrace this theology, and exactly this theology, and accept Jesus Christ into our hearts as our personal Lord and Savior. And that whole notion of, and maybe I can do some more presentations on this, that whole notion of having Jesus Christ as our personal Lord and Savior, that is a more recent development as well. But we won't talk about that now. So what is hell like? In the New Testament, it is a place of unquenchable, fiery torment and destruction of the body and soul. It's a place of outer darkness with weeping and gnashing of teeth. And it's a place of eternal punishment and separation from God. The Apocalypse of Peter, which is early 2nd century, vividly portrays punishments that fit each sin, such as blasphemers hung by their tongues. Its torture imagery draws heavily from Greek mythology. And that's what's really important here. A lot of the concepts come from Greek mythology. Then during the medieval period, Dante's Divine Comedy, especially the Inferno, is what shaped popular medieval images of hell with vivid, imaginative scenes that went far beyond anything in the Bible. So a lot of it's myth and folklore. So there are some, I looked up some medieval artists because that's when things really everybody got excited about hell and things really took off after Dante's Inferno. But I'm sure you've heard of Hieronymus Bosch, who was a Dutch painter. So I pulled some of his work, and these are pieces of his it was a triptych that he did. But here are some of his part of the paintings that he did. And I find these absolutely fascinating. But this is the hell I was raised with. This is what I was taught would happen to me. So you can see why I was afraid. Now I look at it and it just looks like an interesting cartoon or something. Just really graphic, scary stuff and demons. And I was taught about demon spirits and spiritual warfare and demon possession and just all kinds of stuff. So anyway, man, I really like this one. I think this would be a cool poster to have. I might have to look at it.
I think the blackbird's flying out of his butt is really
Yeah. Okay. So one of the people that I follow, his name is Bart Ehrman. So he was born in 1955. He's an American biblical scholar, and he focuses on textual criticism of the New Testament. He was a fundamentalist Christian, but he lost his faith over the problem of suffering and evil, which is called theodicy, which he details in his book, God's Problem. And that was in 2008. His book, Misquoting Jesus, in 2005, was a New York Times bestseller and introduced general audience to New Testament textual criticism. He identifies as an agnostic atheist. In 2021, his book, Heaven and Hell, A History of the Afterlife, was published. And here are a couple of quotes. There never was a single Greek, Jewish, or Christian understanding of the afterlife, but numerous competing views. Moreover, these views did not come from nowhere. They were intimately connected with the social, cultural, and historical worlds out of which they emerged. Only later, in the early Christian centuries, did they develop into notions of eternal bliss or damnation, widely accepted today. And I thought this was really interesting. People who don't believe in God often still cherish the idea of hell for those they hate. And that is because hell isn't a specifically Christian idea, and Jesus probably never believed in it. It was adopted from outside sources after the majority of Christians were of pagan heritage instead of Jewish heritage. The early Christian church was when it was growing in the first and second centuries, was primarily Gentiles. So whole different flavor there. So I'm going to play, I included some links. This 2-hour presentation I've been listening to, it's really, really good. It covers everything that I've covered in this slideshow. But if you really want to dig into this, that would be your best option. But I'm just going to play a short one. So let me know if you don't hear the sound. I think I did everything right. Here we go.
While she cues that up, Bart Ehrman is used pretty heavily by our New Testament professors at Bright Divinity School. So when I had to take my first New Testament class that was required text, I can't remember the title of that particular one. I'm a little surprised to see his agnostic atheist identification, because you would not pick that up.
No, you wouldn't.
His books. But
so where is
it was I love his writing. I love
I'm not
it's
sure
very
where
easy to understand.
it's not picking it up from here. So let me pick it up from somewhere else. Let me get it. The link is not coming from, let's see.
Do you want me to play it?
I don't know why it's.
I couldn't get the links to play. I had
Really?
to go direct
Really?
to YouTube.
Okay. Well, let me just get them out because I have the Word document too. Sorry. There we go. Why does it keep going there? Damn. Okay. Oops, bad word. So let's just do this one. Oh no, that one's too long. Okay, never mind that one. Then let's move on to the.
Well, let me just play it. You can stop sharing and I'll do it.
Okay, so you have the links. Okay.
I have everything queued up.
Okay, well, let me figure out how to stop sharing now.
Should be at the top of your black window.
Oh.
There you go. She's red, a red button right there.
Yes.
There you go. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Google Chrome. And you wanted that first one?
Yeah.
5 things you didn't know?
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? I didn't do the sound. I was telling her how to do the sound, and then I didn't go and didn't do the sound. Okay, make sure I'm on Google Chrome. There we go.
The majority of people in America continue to believe that there's a literal heaven and a literal hell. Those numbers are dropping, but it's still a majority belief, and most people assume that this is taught in the Bible. As it turns out, this understanding that you die and your soul goes to one place or another is not taught anywhere in the Old Testament, and it's not what the historical Jesus taught. Most people don't realize that when Jesus talks about an afterlife, it's not about your soul going one place to another. Jesus, like other Jews at the time, believed at the end of history as we know it, God was going to intervene in this world and destroy all of the forces of evil and bring in a good kingdom. And people who were alive would either enter into that kingdom for a utopian existence forever or would be destroyed. And people who were dead would be raised from the dead bodily to live in this kingdom or be destroyed. And so Jesus didn't believe that the soul went one place or the other. Jesus believed eternal life was lived in the body here on earth. Most people assume that Jesus and his disciples and the earliest Christians believed that a person who was disobedient to God or was immoral or who didn't have faith would be punished eternally in the fires of hell. As it turns out, Jesus didn't think that. Jesus thought that if a person was disobedient to God, at the end they would be completely destroyed, taken out of existence. There would be no conscious afterlife for these people. They would simply be done away with. And so Jesus did not believe in hell as a place of eternal torment. It seems odd to many people today, but the idea of a literal heaven and hell doesn't come from Jewish or Christian sources originally. It actually comes from Greek sources. It's first articulated most clearly actually in the writings of Plato. And the idea then that the soul goes one place or the other is part of Greek philosophy that eventually crept into Christian faith. But it wasn't originally part of the Christian faith, and it doesn't arise out of Judaism. Two of the most influential thinkers in the history of our civilization are Socrates and Jesus. And it's interesting that both of them had views of the afterlife that were hopeful Socrates taught that there are two options when you die. Either you enter into something like a deep sleep with no dreams, which is great. Everybody loves a good night's sleep, and this is like an eternal good night's sleep. Or you have a conscious afterlife in which you have the ability to talk with your ancestors and converse about deep things and think about interesting topics for eternity. And so it's either really good or it's good. It's good either way. Jesus actually had something very similar. Jesus thought that some people would enter into a utopian kingdom of God forever, and other people would simply cease to exist. There's no eternal torment in either one, which means that for both of them, there's nothing to be afraid of about the afterlife, but there may be something to hope for. Understanding that
oh. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, back to the slideshow, and then, well, do you want to just go? Okay.
Let's say you could do a quick round of people's where they're coming from on it.
I love that cat, whoever cat that is.
Oh, that's Smokey, the one-eyed foster cat. Smokey the pirate.
He's gorgeous.
Yeah, he's sleeping right over here next to me. He'll come over and see me a little while. Okay, so the second person is Dan McClellan, and Dan McClellan is actually LDS, interestingly enough. But he is a biblical scholar, and he also specializes in textual criticism of the Hebrew Bible, so the Old Testament, and cognitive science of religion, Second Temple Judaism, and early Israelite religion. He holds that the contemporary evangelical concept of hell is a later theological development. He explains there is no single clear doctrine of our contemporary concept of hell in the Hebrew Bible or the New Testament. Therefore, it is considered post-biblical as it was developed later by the church. And I'll stop sharing, Michelle, and so you can do that first, the first link. There is no concept of hell in the Bible.
Concept of hell. Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. And when I say that, I don't mean that there are no concepts of hell in the Bible. What I mean is that there's no single, unified, or consistent concept of hell that could be labeled the biblical concept of hell. The Hebrew Bible has no concept of hell, at least not until the very last passages that were composed during the Greco-Roman period. There's a passage in Daniel, the very last passage of Isaiah, seem to be pointing in the direction of this developing notion of post-mortem divine punishment. But prior to the Greco-Roman period, the Hebrew Bible has no concept of post-mortem divine reward or punishment. The afterlife is just Sheol, which is the murky existence that is reserved for everyone. Everybody goes to the same place. Nobody gets a reward or a punishment. They just continue to exist in this murky afterlife that is only improved by the consistent provision of food and drink and invocations of your name and things like that. A concept of post-mortem divine punishment really only begins to develop as a response to the violent oppression of the Judean and the Judahite people during the Babylonian, the Persian, and the Greco-Roman periods. As people are starting to wonder, where is God's divine reward and punishment in life, and they're not seeing it, and they're seeing their own people being slaughtered without seeing any divine justice, they're imagining, well, it must be in the afterlife where these things are meted out. And with the help of Greek mythology, we begin to see concepts of divine reward and punishment developing, particularly in the Enochic literature and in other Greco-Roman period Jewish literature that is being composed. And so by the time of the New Testament, you have three vague ideas of post-mortem divine punishment. There's a concept of annihilationism, where the punishment consists in just ceasing to exist. There's a concept of temporary conscious torment, followed either by salvation or annihilation. And then there is the concept of eternal conscious torment. And scholars have pointed out you can identify all three of these in different parts of the New Testament. And then there are other parts of the New Testament that don't seem to have any concept of it at all. For instance, Paul never uses any word that can plausibly be translated hell. And while he seems to be referring to annihilationism in one part of Thessalonians, in one part of Corinthians, he suggests that someone who is committing grave sexual sin be turned over to Satan in order that the spirit might be saved in the day of the Lord. And a lot of scholars interpret that as a kind of universalism, where this individual is going to be tormented by Satan for a time, but ultimately be saved. And you had a lot of early Christians who endorsed a notion of universalism, that whether or not they're going to be punished in the afterlife, ultimately the end goal of every human is the kingdom of God. And scholars still debate the degree to which these different ideologies are popping up in different parts of the New Testament and in the writings of early Christians. But there's not really a single unified or consistent concept of hell that is found throughout the Bible. There are just different ideas about what happens in the afterlife. For some folks, it's just the same dreary existence. For other folks, there's some concept of reward or punishment, but those concepts differ. And I think it's not until we get the rise of a centralized hierarchy and a church institution backed by imperial power that we begin to get a systematization of these things that results in an agreement about a single concept of hell as eternal conscious torment. And that's primarily because of how rhetorically powerful that concept is. And then when we get into the medieval period, we have a lot of Christian literature from different parts of Europe that kind of give flesh to this skeleton. And so when we think of hell today, we're looking back through centuries of interpretive lenses and traditions, and that's what we're seeing, because there is no biblical concept of hell. Most of the Bible has no such concept whatsoever, and the parts of the Bible that do have some concepts of hell are inconsistent, and it's up to us to negotiate with that inconsistency to try to impose a sense of unity upon it. And the fit for this video has been Darkwing Duck.
This almost feels illegal to know if you're
Okay.
Does he always talk about his shirts? Does he always wear fun shirts?
Yeah. Yes, he does. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay. Can you see my presentation? Or not?
Yeah.
No.
It looks like
you
we're
can?
seeing the outline.
Is this okay?
Not
Well,
the slide.
is it the slideshow?
No.
No. Okay. Let me try it again. Gosh darn it. Okay, let's try it again. Share. This one. All right. That should be the slideshow, right? Right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Whoop. No. Bart. Okay. Okay. So there's a really excellent article that I pulled some stuff out of. I have a blog on medium.com. And so I follow other authors. We all make like a little bit of money when we read each other's work. I pay $5 a month to belong to this group of authors. But this guy's really great. They call them, I think it's two authors, they call themselves Brazen Church. So they say words like eternity, eternal, everlasting, etc. don't truly exist in Scripture. The word eternal used in Matthew 25:46 is aeonios. And like Gehenna, it has been completely mistranslated throughout the New Testament. Aeonios is actually refers to the length of an age. So in Greek, an age could refer to a generation, lifetime, or longer, but it's a finite length of time. It's where we get the word eon. The idea of eternal torment comes primarily from Greek thought, a merging of mythology and the ramification of belief in an immortal soul, which came from Plato. Gehenna. Gehenna was a real place. It was the valley of the son of Hinnom, and it was later shortened to Hinnom, Gehinnom, and that's where we get Gehenna. And it was a ravine southwest of ancient Jerusalem. You've probably heard people say that Gehenna was a garbage dump with a heap of perpetually burning trash. Well, that was kind of like a rumor that got repeated and repeated, and so people kind of accepted it as fact, but there's no archaeological or textual evidence for that. It was a place of child sacrifice, according to 2 Kings 23. It links the temple Topheth in the valley of Ben Hinnom with offerings of children passed through fire to Molech, who was a Canaanite Ammonite deity. In First Enoch, a work of Second Temple literature, and this is the period 538 before Common Era to 70 CE, so about the time of Christ, Gehenna becomes a place where the cursed are gathered for final judgment. By Jesus' time, Gehenna was an apocalyptic symbol, but that's the critical thing to remember. It was a symbol. Jesus used the term Gehenna in warnings about the serious consequences of immoral behavior, and especially neglect of the poor and marginalized. I mean, everybody likes to blow the sexual immorality, sexual sin out of proportion. Jesus was really concerned about the poor and the marginalized. It's unlikely that he was referring to Gehenna in terms of a literal place of punishment. He was referring to it as symbolic of, this is a place where children were sacrificed in the fire, and this is not a good place. This is not where you want to go. But it was used as part of a warning. And this is actually a current picture of what the Valley of Hinnom in Jerusalem looks like. So that doesn't look like hell to me. Okay. Sheol is depicted as a shadowy realm of the dead, holding both righteous and unrighteous people, so everybody. It's also a land of gloom and darkness, deep below the earth, a dark underworld or netherworld. And again, during the Second Temple period, that is when ideas about life after death became more complex. And some Jewish scholars developed the idea that Sheol had multiple chambers where people existed based on their moral standing. In the book of Enoch, there are 4 chambers. A chamber with bright spring water where the righteous happily await the day of judgment. A chamber in which the moderately moral can look forward to their own reward. That would be me. That's where I would be. A chamber in which victims of murder wait for justice to be done. And a chamber to punish the wicked, which prefigured the Jewish idea of Gehenna. And then we have the Valley of Dry Bones. So Ezekiel 37 is a prophetic vision of Israel's restoration. And I just asked AI. AI was very helpful in the development of this presentation. I asked for a summary of that, and I'll just read it. Ezekiel sees a valley full of very dry bones and is asked by God if they can live. God commands him to prophesy to the bones, promising to give them tendons, flesh, skin, and breath, so they will come to life. The bones joined together are covered with flesh and skin, and then breath enters them, and they stand up as a vast army. God explains that the bones represent the hopeless people of Israel, and he promises to open their graves, bring them back to their land, put his spirit in them, and make them live again. So the passage is a metaphor for God's restoration of Israel. And the symbolism later contributed to the concept of the resurrection of the dead, or bodily, physical resurrection. And then there's a few more terms. Hades is equivalent to Sheol in the Hebrew Bible. It was the Greek term used in the Septuagint and then the New Testament. It is a temporary place of the dead who are awaiting final judgment, and it's divided into 2 sections, one for the righteous and one for the wicked. In Greek mythology, Tartarus is the location deep below Hades where the Titans were enslaved and the wicked were tormented. According to Plato, this is where divine punishment was meted out. Tartarus is a bottomless abyss where rebellious angels and evil spirits were held until the final judgment, but not necessarily people, not necessarily humans. The lake of fire is a symbol of eternal destruction and the second death. There are 5 verses that mention the lake of fire in the book of Revelation, and now that is the only place the lake of fire is mentioned. Revelation is an example of apocalyptic revenge literature, which this is what I learned from Dr. Matthews, Michelle, which can only be interpreted within the culture and time in which they were written. They often contain imagery associated with popular mythology of the time. So yeah, Dr. Matthews demystified Revelation, which I was afraid to read until I took her class because it had been so weaponized against me. But it is Revelation, and we can have a presentation on that at some point. It is not prophecy for the year 2026. You cannot overlay our culture and time onto this book that was written thousands of years ago. It was intended as a revenge literature towards Rome. Okay. Now, I learned a little bit about Augustine of Hippo. How are we doing on time? Because I was going to cut out some stuff if I needed to. Are we doing okay?
I think we're okay. It's 7:40. And I think Augustine would be important to include in this, particularly with this is the one who came up with the original sin.
Oh, that I did not know that.
We can't see his name because the black bars his name for some reason. I don't know why. It's like it moved or something.
I moved it.
Can
you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I learned a little bit more about him. I don't know that much about him. I need to study some more, but he lived in 354 to 430. He was a North African theologian and bishop who became one of the most influential Christian theologians in history. He formulated the doctrine of eternal conscious torment in hell that shaped Western Christianity. He never mastered Greek, which resulted in the misinterpretations upon which he built his doctrine of eternal conscious torment. He was a student of Plato, whose ideas were heavily influenced by Greek mythology. So Plato was the one who espoused this idea of mind-body dualism and the belief that the soul becomes polluted through its association with the body, and also that the soul is immortal. And if the soul is immortal, then it has to go someplace. It can't just cease to exist. He was also the first Christian nationalist. He believed that he and those who adopted his theology had the right to persecute those who disagreed with his theology or who were not loyal to the state. And his work laid the groundwork for the Inquisition and the Crusades. So interesting fellow Augustine was. Okay, the Latin Vulgate. So this is where we start to talk about the translations and how they affected the development of some of these theologies. So St. Jerome translated the Bible into the Latin Vulgate in the late 4th century. He based his translation on Hebrew texts instead of the Greek Septuagint, which was widely believed to be divinely inspired. One of the scholars I was looking up stated that had our English Bibles been translated from the Greek Septuagint, it's possible that the doctrine that we have now of eternal conscious torment in hell would not exist. And then for the roughly 1,000 years between when the Latin Vulgate was introduced and the invention of the printing press in 1440, copies of the Latin Vulgate were created by hand. introducing human error to the already questionable translation. And then we had copies of copies of copies. So it was a very fertile ground for the development of some of these theologies that were more rooted in contemporary culture than actual biblical texts. And then conditionalism and annihilationism, these were the dominant view of the early Christian church, but by about the 5th century, the concept of eternal conscious torment had dominated. So conditionalism focuses on the nature of immortality, and annihilationism focuses on the final fate of the unsaved. Human beings were believed to not be inherently immortal. Only God is inherently immortal. Eternal life is given by God as a gift through Christ. Immortality is conditional on salvation. All of the dead remain in an unconscious state or soul sleep while they await final judgment. At the time of judgment, the dead are raised, bodily resurrected for the final judgment. The saved go to heaven, the unsaved are annihilated, but there is no eternal conscious torment in hell for the unsaved. The annihilation itself is the punishment. To cease to exist would have been the worst thing that could happen to a person. And then, like Dan McClellan talked about, there was a variation on this, annihilationism with temporal punishment. And that is when the unsaved suffer punishment in hell while they await the final judgment, after which they are annihilated. So I was worried about time, but this is my last slide. The alternative theories is that universal salvation, and that's what I believe in. I believe that we all return to source. What that looks like, what it feels like, I have no idea. None whatsoever. And nobody does. Nobody knows definitively. Conversely, and Sarah, I was thinking about you all week when I put this together, because this is the only other option, as I see it, that our soul is not immortal. It ceases to exist at death. There is no afterlife. However, since matter cannot be destroyed and our bodies return to the soil and sustain other living things, in one sense, this is eternal life. I was fine on my time. I thought I was going to talk for an hour.
I found this interesting to know that, because hell was always what I was threatened with.
I think that's why we're here, probably most of us.
I'm pretty sure.
It's because we want to find something that's real.
Not mean and vengeful and vindictive and not what any of us feel that any higher power would really be. But I do love I love this, and knowing that it wasn't originally in the Bible. And I find it interesting that what is considered to be of what people consider hell to be is how we do punishment with our jail systems, a place where you're supposed to reform or stay. You're there till you die, or you learn how to behave in public with other people and socialize. And I find that interesting of how much of that mimics, how much of that was either put in motion from something that we're referencing from the Greeks and how people were treated, or is it that because of how people took that with the Bible that we decided that that was a way of handling people that were out of
Yeah. Do you think that we all want to see justice done? We all want to see bad people pay the price? And we want to see good people be rewarded in positive ways?
Not if we're the bad person.
What?
Not if we're the bad person, no.
Right. But, I mean, so many, like I went to my singles thing, and this one woman said that when a certain individual that's leading the country dies, she wants to have shirts made that say Trump burn in hell. And would I wear one? And I said, absolutely not. Number one, there is no hell. So nobody wants to hear this, like from this smart ass lady that's going to seminary, right? Number one, there is no hell. And number two, that has been weaponized against me. I would never do that to someone else.
Right.
I hope that he pays for his crimes, and I will be happy when he goes to his eternal rest or wherever he goes. But I don't wish that on anybody.
No. And why would you wear a shirt like that? Why would you? I mean, like what does that bring?
It puts negativity out into the world.
Right. I would rather on what positive things are going to come from this, if that were the case. Like what things
in my lifetime? Yeah.
But yeah, like that's what I normally try and look at. What does that shirt or that comment or what will that bring to the world? We're not here to, I'm hoping we're here to make the world better. I'm hoping we're here to encourage and be better people with the world around us. So doing stuff like that, I never quite get it. I had a hard time. My friends were like that too, where they were like, oh, and I'm like, am I angry? Yes. But am I there?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like if there is a hell and I'm damning other people to it, I deserve to go there just as much as anybody else. Because I've done some bad things.
I'm also the mind of that there are good people who do bad things and there are bad people who do good things, and then there's just really bad people. I kind of feel Hitler was a really bad person. But for the most part, most people I feel are really they're good people that might have done bad things. And that you hope that they learn and that they grow, and that's the goal. At least that's my goal. But I do look at it that way because there are good people who have done bad things. No, none of us are perfect. And then there are very bad people that sometimes do really good things, and you're just like, wow, like that's amazing that you did that. But yeah, I kind of like the whole idea of annihilation, though, for really, really bad people.
Yeah, but see, the thing is that you kind of win either way, right? If you go return to source, that's cool, and if it's just the end,
right?
Yeah, I could use the rest. I've been fighting for a long time, so I'm not worried about the afterlife. The thing that I worry about at the age of 63 is a long, lingering, painful illness. That's the mortality that I struggle with.
That's a living hell.
Yeah. And sometimes it is what you make it. And there are some people who can go through that illness and they can fight through, and we don't wish it on them, but they're ones to fight through and go, you know what? I still have more time. I still get to be here. But we all have our own path and we have our own way that we're all going to go.
Yeah.
And so I do hope it's in my sleep and quiet, and I'm.
Yeah. And that you have your health until the last, and your mind.
The mind, that part.
Yeah. None of us knows.
We have several people unmuted. I saw Rick, and then Sarah, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something too?
My computer is really acting up right now, so I kept myself unmuted because I didn't know if I'd be able to unmute myself when I wanted to.
Okay.
But I I will let you know that you guys really love Bart Ehrman. So do atheists.
That's very cool. He's so brilliant and interesting, and the topics I find are fascinating. So
yeah, he gets recommended a lot to people in deconstruction. His name comes up a lot. Anyway, I don't have anything to say right now, though. I'm trying to fix the fact that I can see like four of this Zoom screen right now.
Oh, okay.
I am listening, though. I am listening.
Rick?
I always looked at hell has always been an interesting thing to me. First, I never believed in it, but I always looked at it as a source of control. Do this or you're going to hell. Think this or else you're going to hell. I didn't buy into it. Now, Michelle's heard me talk about this before. In fact, we've had many discussions about this. One of the reasons I don't think there is a hell is that, in theory, if God is who He is, the be-all, end-all, He knows everything from, the beginning to the end, He knows exactly what you're going to do. There will be no surprises, so there's nothing you can do that would be considered bad in God's eyes because you've already done it, or this is your path. You're following your path, so you're not doing anything against God. God isn't going to say, "Whoa, I didn't see that coming." So, because of that, you really can't sin against God because He knows it's going to happen, and He's allowing it to happen. So you're following along their path. Ergo, there is no hell. And that's all I got.
Here's what I did have something to say. Just hearing what Rick said there. Yeah. Yeah, it's and what kind of loving parent says you made a mistake, so I'm going to put you in the basement and set on fire. But I love you. I just really wish you'd made the right choice. But you didn't. So off to the basement with you. Yeah, it's on fire, but you deserve it because you didn't make the right choice. So no, I don't think there's a hell either. Well, yeah, no, I don't think there's a hell anyway. But even if I was a Christian, no, I couldn't get behind that. That's a loving parent doesn't do that.
No, we put parents like that in prison.
Yeah, exactly.
Or in Washington.
I like Washington State, we should clarify.
Yeah. Also, Rick, there's this idea that God does not know everything.
Really?
There's this idea in process theology, which is something maybe we can talk about at some point. That we are co-creating with God, co-creating our existence with God, and in like a partnership, and that God is changed by us, by the creation, as much as we are transformed by God. So interesting stuff.
That would be
so every time you think, see, that's the thing about deconstruction. Every time you think, oh, okay, I reject this concept, and I'm going to think in these terms, and then you realize that so you have to kind of detach a little bit and suspend judgment on everything, take it all in, and then kind of decide what makes sense for you. But that's what it is. The perception of the afterlife is something that we come up with.
Yes.
There's nothing definitive.
We design our own heaven and hell. Like I told you about that story I wrote when I was like in junior high about heaven and hell. One person's heaven could be someone else's hell. It's just in our design for it. But I do like the idea of God going, didn't see that. Just
Yeah, I don't know that much about process theology yet. Have you studied it yet much, Michelle?
I have not enough to feel comfortable talking about it.
That's never stopped me.
I know that I have there a lot of it right up to a point resonates with me. Yeah, absolutely. But I think there was a time I thought about I was going to get Trip Fuller to come on and talk about it instead. So that since that probably won't happen, it may be me talking about
Well,
it.
there's Tom Ord. Have you thought about Tom Ord or have you thought about Keith Giles? Because he's a friend of December's. Have you thought about
I don't know Keith Giles. Tom Ord has been on here, but it's been a number of years. He came on
He's
when
like one of my heroes too.
Yeah, he's great for deconstructing folks. His book God Can't had just come out, and that's when he was on. It was really early Zoom days with us, I think.
So that's when that's the book, Rick. I don't know if you've read that book where God is not omnipotent. He does not know everything.
Oh, I got that book, and after Tom did the show, I went on and got it. And at first, I was pretty livid about it.
Why?
Well, because of my internal, the way I was raised, such as it was, is that not so much that God is infallible, but God sees and knows all. That God controls everything. And then to have someone come along and go, no. Like, that shook, it didn't shake my faith, or it didn't shake God. It's like, well, that's interesting. That was one of those, moments.
Well, you were still wrestling kind of with predestination too,
Yes.
which I could see that would be really problematic.
Oh, yeah. I'm still wrestling with it. I just don't care anymore.
Yeah, well, yeah. That was in my 30s when I went and chased after my uncle, who was a Reformed Baptist minister. He was a Calvinist. That was a very difficult time. I ended up having to walk away from those relationships.
There's so many layers to this. There's just so many layers. I'm looking at your last slide about universal salvation, and but then there's the layers of the soul's immortality or not just what happens, but just the existence piece versus the reward piece versus the justice question of if you believe in evil. That's another one we could talk about. Does evil really exist?
Separate from the depravity of humans. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. But the idea that, universal salvation sounds all good and touchy-feely. Everybody gets to go and celebrate and no problemo. And then you go, wait, what about those bad guys? Wait, shouldn't something happen to them? If it's not going to happen to them in this life, I've always been told that God's going to take care of it. Is God really going to take care of it?
Well, there's also karma and reincarnation and progressing through these different cycles of learning and soul development. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'll find out someday.
It's obvious people who have bad karma are living very difficult lives.
Can, absolutely. Seems like they have really good lives, though, publicly anyway.
I don't know. I wouldn't trade 1 second in the mind of our friend.
That'd be a scary place.
That he must be in absolute torture.
Which is an advantage.
To be so desperate for adulation. It's sickening.
Well,
that's how.
In terms of my own faith journey, and I think that's where these kind of conversations, it's one thing to help us go, okay, I've never thought of that before. Sorry, you have to go, Rachel.
Hi, sweetie.
Bye, guys. Love you all.
Hi, love you.
Hi, Rachel.
I think it's one thing to have to, I guess, where was I going with that? I got distracted. I think if we're examining, I don't want to just keep using the buzzword deconstruction because that's becoming a buzzword. But if we are examining different aspects of our faith, for whether or not it still works for us, I guess, this would be a critical piece for those who feel like you did, Diane, that it was directing almost all of your decision making. Your thinking was wrapped around, am I going to go to hell if I do this? And when it gets in the way of a life of abundance that we believe God wants for all of us, then it's no longer serving our faith journey, right? And I think, like in any case, if it's no longer serving, bringing us closer to God, closer to humanity, love, then it's time to lay it aside. And I think the need for certainty then says, but what's the alternative, rather than just laying it aside? And I don't know, Sarah may feel differently about that, but I feel like for me, I think I look back at the different transitions of my life and my faith journey, and I think I probably did want to know if this wasn't like learning these things, for instance, all of this rationale that you've shared with us about there not being a hell, that's helpful. And then, but I have to say, okay, so, but what do I do with this blank canvas now? And I don't need to know whether hell exists or not, because I truly believe that that's not going to impact me. But I know a lot of people wrestle with that. And I think sometimes I think it's helpful to at least say, okay, I've never been able to justify anything other than that's what I was taught. That was how the Bible was interpreted to me by a Sunday school teacher or whatever, or someone I really looked up to. And so for me, I'm beginning to ramble now, so I'm going to just try to stop. But I guess I want to come full circle tonight. We still have a few minutes. So I guess I would like to hear some of your feelings about that. Is it helpful? Have you already moved on? What did you substitute with, or did you not need that? Where are you in this conversation of hell existing or not, or understanding or interpretation? And what does that do for you on your journey?
Who are you asking?
The whole group.
Robert? What do you think?
I don't.
And that's a good answer. I'm just curious what the group.
Oh no, did I scare him away?
Maybe.
I'm sorry.
Anybody else feel comfortable sharing what you're thinking, Rick?
I still don't believe in hell.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you, Anantha.
Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Okay. I don't know how it came about. Strange. But I still don't have video. So, but can I talk now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go.
So, Diana, this is a wonderful presentation. Just like last week, Sarah's, I could not fully go into the theme of last session, Sarah, but I want to thank you because it was thought-provoking. And, a lot of things kind of aligned with a lot of things you said last week, kind of aligned with me. And there's an inner resistance to, oh my God, really? Am I an atheist? I don't know. I mean, it's like scary stuff, But honest, it was a wonderful presentation. Unfortunately, I couldn't participate. And then I got tuned out towards the middle part of it, and I was gone. And but I thank you for that. And Diane, I'm looking back. I always kind of look at it cross-culturally because I'm an internationalist, I'm a globalist, and I come from another culture. So I'm going, there's no concept of hell or heaven in Hinduism or Buddhism, or, there's a lot of multiple births and deaths and reincarnations, and there's the ultimate nirvana, but that's not exactly heaven. So it makes a lot of sense when we talk about how we may have created this concept of it. But it's such a scary concept, Diane. I'm talking to my fellow Christians from India who got transplanted to Dallas, Fort Worth, and Chicago, and Washington, LA, Seattle. They move more and more and more towards the fundamentalist version of Christianity. And it's such an irony that some of them have become Christian nationalists. I mean, we're talking about immigrant, brown-skinned people who have taken on this theologically and strongly believe in hellfire, damnation. And if you don't, think like us, boy, we pity you. We feel so sorry for you. We grieve for you because your line is set. You're going straight to hell. So that is a scary concept, even to talk about that we have made these things up, but Judaism doesn't have hell. Hinduism, I mean, all the religions of the East really don't have that. But you do pay your price by being a bad person, but not exactly eternal damnation, right? I mean, forever and ever and ever. So this thing is very appealing and very, I'm very much interested in how process theology fits in. It's like process theology is very much like process engineering. You make up as you go along because things are incomplete. And although it has origins in philosophy and mathematics, the process theology is fascinating. It's emerging, and it has some relevance to what you're talking about, Diane, because these are all coming to terms with indefinite or intangibles or nebulous nature of faith and religion. So belief without evidence is faith. And so we term it as faith, and we anything goes in faith. Whatever you believe, doesn't have to have evidence. And so it really becomes an issue, Diane. I'm looking at the immortality or the mortality of human beings. I'm in my 70s now, and suddenly I'm jolted to believe there's no heaven and there's no hell. I'm going, holy shit. Now I lived all my life, and now you're telling me after I die, I don't go anywhere? I mean, it's like you rot in the earth and you just, it just, it is a jarring concept, right? So but
Well,
it
there
makes
was
sense. Everything you said makes sense. So it's just, I'm also, it's an enigma now, for me also.
so, Anantha, there was a time when you didn't exist and it didn't bother you then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, 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 yeah,
So I think non-existence isn't problematic.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's so true. Yeah, that's right.
My
And
atheist
I
friend,
think, death,
atheist that
death
I
is,
dated, brought that to my attention, that there was a time that he didn't exist and and that was weird to him. So anyway,
so
go ahead.
yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who, I seem to gravitate towards when we talk about science, and he says that death is a privilege of the living. It's a very profound statement that death actually is a privilege of the living, because there are billions and billions of people who are never born. And so they'll never know. And we are the lucky few who actually were born into a body that has a conscience, and death actually becomes a privilege that we have to embrace. And so what comes next after death is you have to leave it to fate, that you can construct whatever you want to in an afterlife scenario. But anyway, those are my random thoughts.
What when you were talking about people that turn right and go fundamentalist, what do you think prompts them to do that?
There's a certain degree of victimhood in it. A lot of Indians, I mean, all Indians actually come from a post-colonial legacy of oppression and the weak, ruled by the mighty British Empire, that created famines, that claimed millions of people to starvation, while we were feeding Europe all the time in World War I and World War II. I mean, this kind of oppressive legacy is probably biologically ingrained. And when they come here and then they see a savior-like person in politics, they get all riled up and they say, it's like Jesus reincarnated, but in a very masculine form of strength and power and, kind of anti-establishment, resistance, that sort of thing. And they get easily manipulated, and they bring it into the realm of faith. And they think this is what Christianity is all about. Kind of nationalistic version of it. And the evil, the satanic forces have to be resisted. And any questioning of their faith is satanic and hence must be resisted. So there's this kind of subconscious yearning for victory over what we don't know. Even they don't know, but they want to be victorious. And this political discourse gives them that, allows that kind of a thinking on their thought.
They don't recognize that they are absolutely hated by this administration and seen as subhuman.
No, they really don't. They, a lot of Indian brothers and sisters and the families that I see in the United States have never been assimilated into the American mainstream. not like I don't want them to sacrifice their culture and traditions in order to become American, but they stay on the margins and don't understand exactly what's going on in the American mainstream, other than watching Fox and maybe that's sort of a media mainstream, that has gone more and more to the right. And they think that that's exactly what American society is all about. And they want to assimilate in that sense. They want to become part of that. So it's very difficult to reason with them. And I'm sure, Sarah, you see that in Canada too. There's a whole lot of immigrant politics there. And mainstream Canadian church is not accommodating enough to what's going on in their social lives, and so a guy in the pulpit who speaks loud and preaches hell, damnation, and see, we're all going to dogs, and we're we have to resist that. That becomes Christian nationalism, so, I think. So,
No, it's here too.
so yeah, I'm sure you're watching that too.
Not as pronounced though, right? Sarah?
Getting more so.
Mhm.
Getting more so since Trump came in.
Emboldened people.
Yep.
Aren't Canadians angry that he's so dismissive and wants you to be the 51st state?
They were, but he's not talking about that. And he's not talking about that much anymore.
Yeah.
He'll pick up with it again. He hasn't let Greenland go either.
Ontario in particular has kind of a populist premier itself right now. There's a strike that's been going on for it'll be a month. It'll be a month tomorrow. It'll be a month tomorrow among human service workers that are working for that support developmentally disabled people against the because of this premier from this very populist family. He had a brother that was premier for a while too, and yeah, it's becoming more pronounced. Let's put it that way. It's around.
And but before we run out of time, I just want to make sure Tom or Dave or Mom or Jenny or anyone want to have any other thoughts or things to share. Okay. Thank you, Diane, for taking it again for me. I think it's great that we can still gather, and y'all can still gather even if I'm not able to participate. And in this case, I was home, but still recovering from a number of things. And it was good that we planned it this way, because I would not have been able to be ready myself. So, and
Michelle,
I know a lot of research.
Are you going to share your experiences of these 2 trips you took?
Yes, the next 2 weeks.
Okay, excellent.
So next week I'll do Greece, and the following week I'll do the Philippines.
Okay.
And I did not make it to Windsor to the St. George's Chapel, because I was going to do one on experiencing the Anglican worship experience in England, because it would have been new and different for me, but I didn't make it to that. The schedule didn't work out. So, but I almost have so much from both Greece and the Philippines. I could probably do a series on both of them. I would say if you have any questions for me, anything that you might be curious about my trip, and you want to email me those questions or thoughts ahead of time, that might be helpful to kind of whittle it down. I think the direction I plan to go is not just an overview of the trips, but really shining a light on the specific takeaways that really the Greece story kind of led perfectly into the Philippines experience, because the Greece story, while obviously it was a historical look at some things, I drew from it some interesting observations about the original ecclesia of a civic assembly, and how the Apostle Paul adopted language that was understood there that has become ecclesia in terms of church. And but even further than that is, how do we gather? What makes a body that is what is it that is this ideal ecclesia? Basically, what was he trying to do that we're going to do? Dang it, just kidding. But
women be silent in the church.
Yeah, and that's not even
I know.
another misinterpretation.
Yeah.
But so talking about the Corinthian and Athenian piece of my trip, probably more so than the general thing. I'd love to show you like all the slides of everything and all the places that I went. So I'm still trying to figure out how to do that, where it's just not becomes this boring hour-long slideshow of pictures like we used to do at a fellowship dinner. Every time a missionary came back to visit, we sat there and all these pictures or something, and then the Philippines trip was the ecclesia in practice. And how does the global church show up? And that piece, because I was in rural farming communities and fishing villages that are being shoved out of their native lands for reclamation projects. It was, it's a very completely different experience. And so my two presentations, I think Greece flows naturally right into the Philippines, and so that's the way I'm planning. But if you're curious about anything in particular, send that to me ahead of time so I can either weave it in there, or we'll just definitely make sure we have a window of Q&A time as well. Because in Greece we took the classical tour, meaning we went Athens, south to Sunion, where the temple of Poseidon is, and then Corinth. We didn't make it to Mycenae. I did that earlier. But Epidaurus and Olympia and Delphi and Meteora, where the hanging monasteries are, and then back to Athens. So that was heavily Greek mythology and philosophy kind of a tour. So I was with two New Testament scholars, and that, were helping us draw from, what did Paul walk into, basically. So if that gives you a little idea of kind of where I'm thinking. I haven't started putting the presentations together yet, so
Dr. Matthews fascinates me. She's one of my favorites, so I would just hang on her words.
Yeah.
I'm curious about, but you never know what your professor's personal beliefs are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm desperately curious because she demystified so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll include some of that. Some of that I used in my daily inspirations for while I was gone. In fact, I think one of her things I quoted was something she just said in conversation in the trip. But she, she's for those of you who don't know, so Dr. Matthews, who is the one that had us reading Bart Ehrman.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. So she is a feminist theologian. And but Bright teaches that we do everything first and foremost from a historical, critical interpretation of scripture. And so she's very much focused on that. And then the other New Testament professor who traveled with us, Dr. Jeremy Williams, is a liberation theologian. And so everything that came out of his mouth was focused on looking at in every single situation is basically that every civilization has been built on the backs of slaves or the oppressed. And so the lens of the entire trip was shaped that way. It was definitely a different take on Greece from when Dave and I went a few years before. So it'll be interesting. You're going to get a flavor of both. I just hope.
Did they ever contradict each other?
No, but he is Williams is so emphatic that he looks at everything as a slave master relationship. He calls God the master slave master. He says worshiping God is slavery. I mean, he can come across pretty extreme. I mean, he's an ordained minister, but he really does look at everything through that lens, and he never wavers. And it was to the point where I heard Dr. Matthews ask him, when you're not talking to your students, do you still feel this way?
What did he say?
He said, yeah. He's completely drunk the Kool-Aid on that particular theological.
I think I'm taking that class from him on policing abolition. Okay. Yeah, in the fall. Yeah, I've never had him. So
yeah, I think he kind of took her aback at one point. Yeah, but it was
because I thought the things that she was teaching were very controversial to me.
Right. So. Coming out of where we've been and
yes.
There were some eye-opening things for me, more so in another professor, Dr. Kong's class, but Dr. Matthews really is, when you've never heard that historical interpretation of something, and you've only heard it this one way your whole life. And then all of a sudden you're like, what? And you're like, what? Wait a minute. Is the ground beneath me shaking?
I know.
Sarah relates because she had it in undergrad. You're like, wait a minute. That's not the way I've been told my entire life.
It's scary at first. And then you're like, really? Tell me more.
Yeah.
It's terrifying at first.
Yeah. Well, we're out of time, so anybody feels you need to jump off, I'll hang out and just visit more, and we're just kind of chit-chatting, but